It's like when you're about to tell a joke that you know is going to be offensive and someone walks in. It's like, wait, I don't know if I should tell that joke.
How can I rephrase this? Yeah.
I know. And everybody's like waiting for the punchlines. How does that end, Jose? Like, I don't know.
And they have a lovely dinner together.
Welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a movie podcast by Talks Movies, Television, and filters herself on making offensive jokes. I'm your host, Nightmare Fuel.
I am not your host, Blanket Overshield.
I am your guest, Seven C's.
Yeah, it is. All right. So in this week's episode, we're going to talk about kids' movies that are a lot darker than we realized, right? Because, I mean, obviously the filmmakers intended it to be, but there's some movies that you remember watching as a kid. You look back now and you're thinking, man, that was really, really, really dark. Like, that was some heavy subject matter. So we're going to get into that today. But first, we're going to hit them with the current event.
We know that we have the new Transformers movie coming out, Rise of the Beast. Actually looks intriguing. Bay is not the one behind it, so, you know, might be good. This aspect. But there's going to be an animated prequel coming out for Transformers. And I guess this is a story that they've wanted to do for a long time. The problem is the scale of it just financially was not plausible. So that's why they haven't done it. So they're going to go with animation, kind of take a shortcut there where they can do more. And it's basically a story of the origins of the Transformers, mainly Megatron and Optimus Prime, back when they were friends together. And it's going to go around the wedge that ends up between them as they both end up on different sides, causing this like ultimate war between the Decepticons and them. So that's what's going to be around. Personally, I kind of like that concept. I always enjoy the concept of like, the two friends who the ideals of each of them kind of send them separate ways. So there's always that hesitance where there is that past, but their missions come first, and it creates that conflict. We've got it with the show Smallville. We had it with Lex and Clark. We have it with X-Men. We have it with Magneto and Professor X. I always think it's a good story to tell. What are you guys' thoughts?
Especially if you're a fan of Transformers like me. I've been through a lot with Michael Bay. So I say on our show all the time, he tried to kill my childhood, and did it again with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes,
so it's like,
man.
I'm hopeful that it turns out well. And then the animated one, it sounds like there's been video games that kind of touch that story, and also comic book storylines. I think IDW did one really good a couple of years back, which is pretty similar. So I'm just curious to see what they touch on, like how they approach it, because I know some people are kind of like upset about the voice actors that are going to be portraying some of those characters, but
Isn't Hemsworth going to be Optimus?
Yeah, he's going to be Optimus.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting, man.
Who do they have for Megatron? They had somebody for Megatron. It was, oh man, who was it?
Steve-O.
There you go. I thought it was Johnny Knoxville, but you're right. It's Steve-O. I was such a fan of Beast Wars. Like Beast Wars as a kid. Like I was huge into that, man. That's why the new movie has me intrigued. But like you said, Caesar, on it, that Michael Bay just completely crushed it. Like the first Transformers, I think, still holds up pretty well. Like it's cool. The second one was okay. And then it just got really bad really quick. And I have a huge issue with the way that they designed them. Because anytime they'd be battling, I could not tell who was what. Like, they need some kind of color differentiation. They need something. It was just like a whole squabble. And then with the Michael Bay shots, where it's so fast-paced and moving, I didn't know what was going on. I'm surprised people weren't having seizures watching those, man, because it was all over the place, And I don't even want to get in the Mutant Ninja Turtles, like what he did to that. That was awful. Like, I did not like those movies. I saw them once, I think. I didn't even watch the sequels, I think, and I was just like, "Nah, I'm good, man." Like, no.
I will say this. I enjoyed Bumblebee, and I don't.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. I don't think Bay was behind that.
No, he wasn't. No.
So I enjoyed Bumblebee, so that was like one thing. Second one, I did see a clip of a battle from the new one, and it looks clean. I can tell what was going on, who was shooting at who, and who was punching who in that clip, which is something we did not get with the Michael Bay movies. And then 3, I feel the bar and the standard for animated movies has gone up over time, especially the last like few years when we had like Spider-Man, now like Super Mario Brothers that came out. So like the bar of the storytelling that comes with these animated films is higher. So I know a lot of people, they see animation right away, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to see an animated movie. But I feel we're not at that point right now. So I'm kind of optimistic regarding the animated movie.
Especially with the fan base that's behind it. It's it's going to be something that's going to be scrutinized regardless, like how it turns out. I think one thing to keep in mind, like I think you guys talked about on your show before, is just who is this aimed towards, right? The demographic. Most of the time, animation depends on how the design looks, if it's geared towards kids or geared towards adults, right? Like you could tell, like Across the Spider-Verse was kind of like trying to hit both, like So I'm curious to see what kind of animation style it ends up being. If it ends up being just straight CGI, kind of like similar to the beginning of Bumblebee, which was amazing, which was like well, I think every G1 Transformers fan has wanted their whole life, was like, give me that movie. But like you said, Daniel, like it would be super expensive to just do that. I think all CGI like that. So I could see why they're going to animation. So yeah, I'm hopeful, man. And at the same time, yeah, a little hesitant just because the voices are going to be something that might throw you off. So
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it is one of those animated movies that is dark enough to be for us.
Segue.
Yeah.
That segues us into the next topic. So let's get into movies that were intended for kids that have a darker theme. So how would you guys classify that, right? Because there's some movies that have kids in it, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's targeted towards children. But then you have some that are. So how do you guys kind of differentiate that? Is it more plot line? Is it more of what the obstacles that the characters are associated with, or is it more like marketing? Like, how would you guys kind of associate with that? And whoever wants to go first.
Well, I mean, I looked at it as at least when I was formulating my list, movies that were targeted towards kids. So that's how I chose. Okay, was this movie targeted towards kids, or was this an animation that was targeted towards adults? So that was the first thing. And then what made it dark? It was kind of a mixture of everything. It's like, is the overall concept very dark? Are the themes dark in it? Is there a scene that's just like, should a kid be watching this? In general, was that too much? That's how I kind of categorize. Like, okay, is this dark overall for the general public? Because like I admit myself, I grew up watching a lot of horror movies. I watch more horror movies than I watched cartoons. So some of this was just normal. I'm like, whatever. I saw this in a horror movie. This is nothing. But now as an adult looking back, and then hadn't worked with kids for many years, now I can look at it through the lens. I was like, okay, that might have been okay for me, but I can see how for many kids this might be a little too dark.
I think thematically is what I was thinking about. So like in the story itself, a lot of the times there are things that you would say was meant to be for a kid. It was marketed for a kid.
Yep.
And then when you sat down and watched it, you're like, wait a minute. This is, I don't know, man. This is a little too dark to be considered like a kid's movie, but it was.
Yeah.
And going through this list, like after you guys told me this, I was like, I almost can say that 80 to 90% of any film between the 80s and 90s that contained a puppet in it was too dark.
Yes, man.
Kids.
Yes.
There was a lot of them, bro.
I wonder why studios felt the need to have to do this, right? So like to kind of go off of what you guys said, it's like it's that little realm where the studios felt like, hey, kids movie, we want them to deal with a lot of adult ideas and thoughts and obstacles, and like I don't know why they felt like the 80s and 90s we were mature enough to deal with this. But to go with what Jose said, my list today that I put together, I didn't think through the prism of what I watched, because I grew up watching horror movies, so I would watch a movie and be like, that's it, they only deal with one death. I mean, so like 50, you know what I mean? But I had to think about what was intended, like what you said, Caesar, like what did they intend for this to be? And it seems like if it was more for kids or families going to watch this movie or watching it at home, on a VHS tape, that's kind of where I put my list together. So All right, let's start off first then. If you want to lead us off, Caesar.
Like I said, I compiled just a list, just thinking through this. And I'll say my first one has to be Return to Oz. Like
Dude, I had that too as my first one. Yes, but please go ahead.
And shout out to my boy Grace Scott, my co-host. Like I talked him into watching this movie as a kid because we went to the theater to see this when it came out instead of watching Transformers the movie, which is another one that like screws you up. But
yeah,
and we were like, yeah, it's Oz, Dorothy's back, and it's a Disney movie. I'm hyped. And then you get in and it's like, man, this ain't the same Oz we remember from the 20s.
At all, man. At all.
It's like almost dystopian Oz, and it's a dark, crazy movie, man.
Yeah, it's like, where are the munchkins? You know what I mean? Like you sit there and you go, and it was like even the yellow brick road was corroded.
Yep.
Like everything that we knew as like iconic for this movie, everything, like you said, it was like dystopian. Everything was like wiped away. It was such a dark, ugly feeling. I remember watching that as kids, and even the characters, the new characters that we see that accompany Dorothy on this, it feels just dark. It's like they kind of sapped away a lot of the joy and energy and the brightness of the first one. Even the color feels kind of muted in this one.
Yeah, totally, man. And the score in there, and then just some of the themes and characters. They're really.
And the guys on the rollerblades, those guys were scary as hell.
Yes, and the character of Jack Pumpkinhead, I always feel that was like pre Jack Skellington.
Yeah,
and it's very similar. And I think Tim Burton was working at Disney at the time, probably. So it's funny.
Yeah. Seemed like they stole it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna borrow that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you ever watch that, Jose, as a kid?
No, that's actually one I have not watched.
The girl that played Dorothy, I cannot think of her name, but she was the one that was in the movie The Craft. She always plays like
Fairuza
the weird
Balk.
Is that her name?
Fairuza Balk.
Yeah. She was also in Waterboy. Remember that the love interest in Waterboy?
Okay.
So she's that weird dark girl. So she plays Dorothy, and it's crazy, man. Like it deals even with like a psycho ward and all this stuff. Like,
yeah,
oh wow!
I'm telling you, man.
Wait,
it's
this was targeted to kids.
Yes, it's a kids movie.
When did this come out? This is like in 85. So I was like six years old, and I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I remember watching it like on VHS as like a kid, sitting there, watching it, and it was those movies where I was like, oh, like it felt so weird because we liked Wizard of Oz growing up, and watching that one, it's just like a weird, it makes you feel weird watching that movie. And even now as an adult, I saw it like maybe 5 years ago, I want to say, left me with the same feelings. It still feels weird.
That mandolin, man, when there's a character named Bombi who like literally swaps her heads out. Like, and she has a room full of heads, and she just swaps them out and wears different ones in different days.
You need to watch
creepy,
it, Jose.
Man. It's creepy, dude.
I'm just picturing like a non horror or non like intense
Dark
movie
Disney,
watching
man.
Kid, like a kid who's not desensitized to it, just watching that for the first time. Just being like, Mom, what's with all these heads?
It had everything too. It had like puppets, people in costumes, claymation. Like everything of that time was in that film,
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to check it out. Now I'm curious.
That's why when we mentioned this topic, that was the very first one that popped into my head was Return to Oz. I had to. That's why I'm glad you mentioned it.
I actually recommend that to kids like that want to start off into horror. Like if you like want to kind of get kids in, start watching horror, put on Return to Oz, man.
Yeah, that's a good
kind
one.
of perfect little. Get them ready.
It's like a segue. It's that segue.
Yeah.
All right, Jose.
I'm gonna go with the only movie I have here that's not like pre-90s. So I'll start with that one, and that's Toy Story 3. And this is mainly for the ending. That incinerator scene, like shit got so dark like towards the end when the bear, what was his name, Oz the bear or something like that, when he just like decides to leave them as they're about to go into the incinerator, and it gets to the moment where the toys like realize we can't get out of this is it. and they just sit there, hold hands, and they accept their fate that this is it. They're about to
That's
die together. I'm like, this
yeah.
is a kids movie there, and they're just like, yes, like take me. This is it. This is over. We'll burn alive. And I was like, what is happening here? Like, I remember
Yeah.
watching it for the first time. I'm like, what is gonna happen? Because they had talked about it. That was possibly going to be the last Toy Story at the
Yes.
time.
Mhm.
I'm like, are they all just gonna die? Andy, you asshole! How
Yeah. Same. I know they're just toys, but come on, we've been watching them for years. I know what you mean.
Yeah, so like there was a couple other scenes that were a little darker in theme, but that one right there, like that was really intense. And I'm thinking, a 4, 5, 6 year old like watching these and like, what's happening to the toys, mom? Why ain't they getting out? Why aren't they getting
Yeah.
out?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Okay. So I have obviously I have a long list, but I wanted to go with a popular one. I want to go with My Girl. So My Girl tackles
Yeah.
the death of Macaulay Culkin character, and why did whatever reason around those 80s and 90s they wanted kids to understand and process death, like it became so synonymous with it. So it's not just that like, oh, we're going to introduce a main character where we see like her parents dead. No, we're going to introduce you to her best friend. You're going to love the best friend, and then we're going to kill him, and we're going to see it happen. And you're going to see her just crying, saying, he needed his glasses. He needed his glasses. And he just dies by the bees that he's allergic to. And it's like, oh my God. I remember watching that as a kid. And I know it's like a coming of age story, but it's still like a topic that like most kids don't necessarily deal with, especially something like that. And it's just, it's hard, man. And you're sitting there just watching it, and you still have, it's still so popular. And like what we've always mentioned is like there's like iconic stuff, but people have reference. I know people that have referenced Macaulay Culkin's character dying by the bees, even quoting that line, but they didn't necessarily see the movie. For some reason, they know the scene, or maybe they've seen gifs of it or something. I don't know. But man, that movie took a real dark turn.
See,
Yeah, that was
there's a reason they put that in there. There's a purpose. Is to give parents ammunition. So now the parents, they can show the kids that movie and be like, see, this is why you always wear your glasses. Don't forget your glasses at home, because you could get killed like he did.
Exactly.
And that's the reason why they put that in the movie.
Smart.
Man, Macaulay Culkin has some dark films. He had The Good Son too with Elijah Wood. That was really dark too.
Oh,
But I
yeah,
don't know if you
yeah.
would like that, consider that horror more than
Mm-mm.
like a kids movie, but there was 2 kid stars in it.
Yeah.
But no, like I think that deals with the theme of loss, which is similar to like Jose in the Toy Story 3, which is like it's also dealing with the theme of abandonment, which is what the toys are going through, right? Which is also like very adult theme. That's kind of dark that you see kind of like going through that film. But like, yeah, My Girl, man, that's a dark one too, because it's like you think it's happy-go-lucky, these 2 kids, they're friends, and all of a sudden, yeah, he dies, and she has to learn how to deal with death at a young age. So
Yeah.
Even the song is just like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
And they're like, just ignore the dead kid.
Yeah. They even casted Dan Aykroyd in it, who's a comedic
Yes.
actor, just to kind of lull you into that. And it's like, nope.
Nope.
They catch you.
That's a
Yeah.
good choice. Good choice.
I'm gonna go with Labyrinth, starring David
Mm.
Bowie, another 80s
Mhm.
one that
Going full commando the entire time with that band. That already is horrific, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's about a kid getting kidnapped and pretty much going to be lost to this world, I guess this fantastical world or make-believe world of goblins and monsters, and it's really messed up, man, when you think about it. Retrospectively watching it now as an adult, you're like, yo, she just didn't care. She wanted the kid gone. And once the kid gets taken by the Goblin King, which is played by David Bowie, is it a musical, would you say? Kind of, right? Or just has musical elements?
I think it has musical elements just because like the main character doesn't sing, and like there's some musical numbers, but it's not like throughout the whole movie. So I think it has some to it.
Yeah. And there's just a lot of grotesque looking characters in it, which is kind of like
Yeah.
Jim Henson's, calling card when you think about it, like Dark Crystal, this and
Yeah.
some
Oh,
The
yeah.
guys with the heads popping off was always so scary in Labyrinth, man. Those guys
Yeah,
are
dude.
Like Dan's name, Nightmare Fuel, right there.
Exactly.
Visual Nightmare
Yeah.
Fuel.
It is, and
Mhm.
it just is a lot darker than you would think.
Yeah.
Just going into it. And I think that's also just the whole, like I said, thematically dealing with that thing of, I guess what would that be where you don't want your siblings, where it's like some sibling animosity towards each other, right? Like the responsibility.
Yeah,
So.
and then the fact that she has the guilt that she wished him away. He's gone now, taken by the Goblin King, and now she has to go rescue him. But it's like, you wished your baby brother away. You know what I mean? Like, that's so dark in itself when you really think about it. Like, you have these goblins that are, I'm assuming, that are going to eat him maybe, but David Bowie seems to have a liking and maybe he's going to raise him as his own. I don't really know. They don't really go into it. I'm hoping it's just raising them. I don't know what it is. Like, yeah.
I'm wondering how many kids watched that movie and then just like looked over at their sibling like, oh, it's that easy, huh?
I know we did. I know I looked at my brother like, man.
Why do you think I'm an only child?
Jesus.
I love it.
My next one is I'm going to, well, pretty much all my next ones, they're all going to be more in the animated sense.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with All Dogs Go to Heaven from 1989.
Oh,
yep.
I've heard that one. Yep.
Oh, the first third of this movie, just to kind of give you a little list, just in the first third of this movie, we have a murder, we have like gambling and crime, we have a kidnapping, we have forced child labor. Like, this is all in the first third of this movie. Never mind the fact you just got an abandoned, like, orphan child who's being kept captive by a criminal, like, dog in there who's not even letting her go outside to get air unless she, like, does her work. So, like, this is all the first third. I'm watching it. I'm like, this is pretty messed up. Then the heroes of it rescue her to also manipulate her and use her for her gift and create child labor. And then when they run into possible parents that can take her and give her a loving home, they rob the parents and stay with her. The main character, there's multiple attempted murders on the main character throughout it, including a drive-by shooting that they try to do on the main character. So there's just so much in this movie. And the main character himself is not, it's not a very, I don't want to say likable character, but they're not really a good dog in a way.
They're bad dogs.
Yeah, conniving, sneaking in their best interest. Really, probably the only good characters through and through here is the little girl.
Yeah.
And sometimes the sidekick.
Yeah, the sidekick.
In there, but everyone else is a terrible living being in this movie. And I was like, I remember seeing that as a kid, and again, I didn't catch on to that because those themes, that was just normal with the stuff that I watched. But watching it now, and again, trying to go through the lens of the general public and general kid, I'm like, this is stuff that if you put it in a live action and parents see it, many parents are going to be like, oh, I can't have my kid watch this. But you put it in animation and put some cute little dog designs and a cute little child design, and they're like, oh, yeah, go watch that.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it was a dark era. We always associate the 80s and 90s as like, oh, it's happy-go-lucky. We live in a dark era now. No, the stuff that they were feeding us back then, like you said, like I watched that movie a ton as a kid. And even just at the end, him dying and going to heaven, even associating heaven and religious like theology that you're associating with kids and understanding that there's like an afterlife and death and him trying to fight, time to then protect her and all that. It's so dark. And why do they keep showing us death? I don't understand. What is it about the 80s and 90s that we had to keep seeing death? That even transitions to a movie that I have, Stand By Me. Famous one, right? It's a coming of age story. It is a kids movie because it's not only is the main cast of characters kids, but they also have the surrealism where one of the main characters who's explaining the story, you see like this funny, whimsical story about the guy that's overeating the pie and vomits on everybody, which in itself is already because everyone's calling him Lardo and like just completely humiliating him. But what is the basis of the movie? These kids travel so far to see a dead body, and then they actually show it to us, and it's like a kid that they knew that they went to school with. again, why are they so focused on death in the 80s and 90s? And as parents, how did they not see this? But maybe it's because they were coming off the Vietnam War in the 70s that people were just kind of desensitized. Like, I don't know what it was, but yet a whole movie dedicated to death.
Yeah, it was. I mean, real quick, going back to what Jose was talking about, All Dogs Go to Heaven. I just had to say, Burt Reynolds got that script and thought it was a live action movie, and then they turned it into.
Did he really?
He was like, "Oh, we're gonna shoot another gangster flick, okay?" And then, "Oh no, wait a minute, it's an animated movie."
Did he think he was gonna be wearing a dog suit? Like, what?
Yeah. That's why all those themes are like, "Whoa, wait a minute, this is an animated movie for kids." All right, keep the script, but let them draw whatever they want. But no,
just make everything cute.
Yeah, make it cute. Yeah, now I was gonna pick Stand By Me too, man. It's such the cast in there is so good too, and it's like I don't even consider it a kids movie anymore. Like, it's more of a drama now than even though there's a lot of child actors at the time who were famous, like Corey Feldman and River Phoenix and Gerald Connell, and it's like it is a tribute to death. That whole film, it's crazy. Watching it when you take it into account. And that's a Stephen King, right? Like a short story by Stephen King, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
So
it was. What just to touch again real quick with All Dogs Go to Heaven, the little girl that did the voice. Did you guys hear about the story of her?
No.
So she also, so that little girl, she also did. Do you guys remember Land Before Time? She did Ducky's voice. She did Ducky's voice.
Ducky.
In real life, man, shortly after that movie, her dad went crazy and killed her and killed the whole family.
Wow.
Well, this just got dark.
That's what I'm saying. So because that girl had such a cute little voice. Remember that? I don't know. Yeah. So she had the cute little voice, same little girl, and died shortly after that. The dad, man, he went. Chris Benoit.
They turned that into an animated cartoon.
They did.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Dan's like, you want to go dark? I'm gonna take this to another level.
Let's go dark. That was real life, man. I'm telling you, what was in the milk in the 80s and 90s? What was in the milk, or what was in the beef? And they kept telling us, "What's the beef?"
This one, I got to go back again to the 80s. I was gonna do animated one, but I got to stick to my gut, and like the one that probably traumatized me the most as a kid was the movie Troll from 1986. So that movie, if you watch it, it's the music is very whimsical. It's meant to be like there's little puppetry and characters in there. It's supposed to be kind of cute, but then you get this ugly troll who's basically killing everyone in the building. And this kid named Harry Potter, ironically enough, not the other Harry Potter, but has to try to save everyone in the building from basically being turned into trolls by this evil troll. Yeah. And as a kid, man, it freaked me out like so bad. And I don't know if that's I always tell people I had a phobia of like trolls or small things because of that movie and what it kind of depicted of the place that you call home not being safe because there's something in that place that's basically getting rid of everyone.
Yeah.
So that one kind of messed me up as a kid.
That survival element.
I remember watching that one as a kid as well. Like I bought the DVD that had Troll 1 and Troll 2. So
Troll
you've seen Troll 2? That's a whole thing that I want to do an episode on. Troll 2 is so awesome. I love going back and rewatching that one because of the stuff behind it. But yeah, Troll 1 was always freaky.
And then they wonder why the kids are like, there's something in the house. There's something in the closet.
It's like, under the bed.
No, just keep watching Trolls and shut up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now it's cute trolls, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now they sing for us.
Yeah.
All right, the next one I have is another animated one. So don't worry, I'll take care of the animated ones, fellas. It's 1987, The Brave Little Toaster. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
I do. Yeah.
And this is one that I feel, remembering it back and rewatching it again, that Toy Story got a lot of its themes from this movie. So like right away, right at the beginning of the movie. So basically, for those who haven't seen it, this revolves around household appliances. You have the toaster, of course, is in the title.
Mhm.
You have a vacuum cleaner. You have
A
a
fan,
blanket, but it's not just a regular blanket. It's one of those
the
like
heated.
the heated blankets,
Mhm.
a lamp in there, in a radio. So these appliances that are part of it, I guess it's like a summer vacation home that their kid, who they call their master, would always come and visit. But now the kid's gotten older, so he hasn't been there for years, and no one's been there for years. So they feel abandoned. Okay, little Toy Story aspect of it.
Mhm.
Uh, right towards the beginning of the movie, the AC has an aneurysm and pretty much like dies. Like when they tell him off and he can't handle it and he has like a brain aneurysm, breaks down, explodes, and dies. Right to
Jesus.
start.
Death.
And then these appliances decide that they're gonna go find their master. They're gonna leave and they're gonna go into the big city and find it. And when they go in there, like first of all, you have like some creepy imagery, just the way they visually represented some of the scenes. And then there's part where they're about to all die in like quicksand and drown, and then they get rescued, but it's by a shop owner. And then you have this scene that again gave me, as I was rewatching it, Toy Story vibes, where they were in there, but they were all the appliances that are in there are being used for parts. So they're just there
Mm.
waiting until the moment that someone comes in and needs a part where they're going to get killed basically and dissected in front of all the other appliances and torn to pieces for their parts. And they have to try to escape from that. And you get scenes and just themes like that where these appliances are trying to survive a very dangerous world out there, and then they finally get there, and then the new appliances try to dump them out, and they end up in a conveyor belt going towards their death. Again, so it's so like dark, even though these are cutely drawn appliances. If you break down the story and the theme, it's abandonment, survival, death, betrayal. Like all of those dark themes are there in this animated movie that was marketed strictly to kids.
I haven't seen it in a long time. I forgot a lot of the stuff you mentioned. Also love it how when Jose is explaining the movie, he's like, he's finding pleasure in the destruction of these appliances. You're like, and then they die, and then they rip out the conveyor. It's like, yeah, it's like, damn, Jose, you're that good.
All
Did
those
you watch it,
images are
Caesar?
coming back in my head.
Yeah, I know. Did you ever watch that movie, Caesar?
No, that's one I never. That's one of those that I always saw at the video store, but I never got the chance to see. So I remember it though. I remember a lot of the imagery of it, and I would have
Yeah.
totally never have thought that at all. Like if I would have got
Yeah.
that movie, I'm like, oh, this is a kids movie. I'm gonna be fine here. And then it was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
all this other stuff is happening. So no, it sounds like it, man. It sounds really dark, actually. And the
That one
way that
reminds me of like Land Before Time, where you saw it like, oh, okay, you saw the movie, you go away for like, I don't know, like a year goes by and you look and they got like 8 sequels already. Like, what the hell?
Oh, damn.
I remember Land Before Time is like on like 12 or 14 now. It's like they're like Fast and the Furious and Land Before Time are like competing for the most sequels ever.
It's like the Now series. Now that's what I call Land Before Time, 56.
That's funny, man. Okay, let's see. For another one. Okay. A famous one is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Like,
Is that a kids movie though?
I think Indiana
Yeah,
Jones,
I think
because
so.
I think so, because Indiana Jones, like it's I wouldn't consider an adult movie. It's a family movie. I consider it a
Mhm.
family movie, but
Okay.
fair enough. Okay. If you want to go kids movie, there was a movie called Legend with Tom Cruise, and I saw that one when I was a kid, and
That
it
is
had
unusual.
it had Tim Curry that played the devil.
Yeah.
And that thing scared the hell out of me. I had nightmares about that thing because I remember watching when I was like 2, I think, something like that. And he had like these magnificently large, giant black horns. And he was so scary looking. The aesthetic design of the devil was so scary. It just freaked me out. And it had to do with like, it had like an elf, right? Like a little elf, I think that was in it. And he's trying to rescue the princess. But even just the whole theme of it is very scary, and you have this evil devil-looking monster that's just ruling the land. It's just it's so scary, man. It was one of those things. I'm like, why?
The witch in that movie is creepy as hell.
Yes, man, it really was.
The makeup,
It's a yeah, it's a movie I purposely haven't seen in like decades. Like it's been a while since I've seen it. I want to go back and I want to rewatch it. Like I keep telling myself I'm going to watch it, but it's just even the pacing is slow and just like just methodical, and it's very, very freaky. It's like that movie that it's like that feeling where you walk away and you just feel like dirty, sort of like how The Return of Oz is. It felt like that.
It's Ridley Scott, right?
I think so, right? He's the one that did that.
Ridley Scott.
Yeah. I think he is the one that did that. Yeah.
It's funny because you said the title and it wasn't ringing a bell. And as soon as it was like Curry Devil, automatically it came back and I can see the image. Like I think that's to this day one of the most iconic designs in there, and it still holds up to the test of time. So just hearing Curry Devil, automatically the image popped in my head.
Yeah. If you remember when we went to that museum in Salem, remember that was one of the things there. I was like, oh man, it's scary. That was one of the best looking designs of the devil I've ever seen in anything. And it was a kids movie. Freaking scary.
Yeah, that's sounds like a dark Legend of Zelda. In a way. Like,
exactly. It was exactly
Tom
like
Cruise
that, man.
plays Link, and Mia Sarah plays Zelda, and Tim Curry's like, Gandorf, whatever that villain's name is. I was gonna say The Neverending Story, but I'm gonna go with Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's from 1983. It's based on a Ray Bradbury story, and it's about these two 13-year-old kids that are best friends. They live in a small town, and they're excited about the carnival coming to town, but the carnival coming to town is basically the devil showing up, and you have no idea, but like he basically gives everyone their wish, whatever their deepest desire is, and twists it on them when they go to the carnival. And the way the story develops, it's a Disney movie. Again, you would not think it is this dark, but it's completely in the realm of like Twilight Zone, or like it just gets really dark really fast. And it all happens the second that the carnival comes to town. And there's some dialogue in there that's amazing for it being a kids movie. Some of the situations are really adult, again, for being a kids movie, that these two kids have to pretty much try to save the whole town because everyone's like getting turned quick, and the elements that happen when the carnival takes these people and changes their deepest desires is definitely borderline horror. So I won't give away too much of it, but that's something worth watching if you haven't seen it.
This one is probably the darkest kids animated movie, one of them that I've ever seen. It's a 78 movie. It's called Watership Down.
I knew it. I just knew where you're going.
Oh my God. Within the first 30 seconds, you have a rabbit massacre. First of all, that's how we start. The whole idea, plot line behind it is basically you've got this little rabbit who gets a premonition that like death is coming to their little rabbit community. So he tries to warn them that they need to leave. So some of them do listen to him, and this is their adventure to find a new home because of that premonition. But there are some scenes here where things don't happen off camera. You know, I mean, it's weird saying off camera on an animated movie, but you know, they don't happen off screen, and they're so just visceral and graphic and vicious overall. So like, there's a scene where like a rabbit gets caught on the snare, and the snare is slowly tightening, and they're showing this rabbit pretty much like getting choked to death, blood gushing out of the mouth as the rabbits are trying to gnaw at the string to release him and be free. And he's literally just dying on screen and blood spitting onto the other like rabbits. You have that. You find out what was actually going to happen to their community, and you get this like visual representation of pretty much all the rabbits suffocating and dying to death, talking about how they had to crawl over the bodies of other rabbits to try to escape, and then eventually suffocating to death. And they show this visually, like
Jesus.
on there. And then towards the end, you've got between these two alpha rabbits a fight where they show them literally clawing and taking chunks of each other's skin, and all just a bloody mess. And it's so, the whole thing is so vicious. And this is a kids movie. I definitely recommend, if you haven't seen it, to watch it, just to be like, I watched that. Don't show it to King.
No.
This is not for King. Don't show it to the kids at all.
It's like,
But holy crap,
it's apocalypse now for kids using rabbits.
Oh,
So don't
man.
show it to. That's my greatest analogy. Just don't show it to kids, man.
Man, I need to watch it.
It's
I'm
dark.
down to watch it now. Yeah, I haven't even heard of that, so I'm down to watch that. Disney had their theme. They had so many dark things, like, you can go 101 Dalmatians, where it's literally murdering these dogs for fashion sense, right? One that I went with though is Pinocchio. Pinocchio is so dark, but you have this man that created this
Slavery.
doll, that's grooming him in a way. You have child trafficking. They get swallowed by a whale. Like, it's so dark. And even just the message for kids that you're not good enough and you're trying to strive to be something else. Just everything about Pinocchio is just so dark. And I understand they get us with like the Wish Upon and Jiminy Cricket, but it's dark. And I don't know if you guys have seen the Guillermo del Toro version of Pinocchio that's on Netflix. Really good. He touches on a lot of those dark themes about it. And that's why I love the movie so much. But there's so much darkness even with the Disney one. Even the visual elements of it is dark. I remember being a kid and getting scared about them turning into donkeys and going to that.
That donkey scene.
That donkey scene, going to that whole like island and all that. It's just it's child trafficking. Like, that's literally what it is. It's scary. I had to talk about Pinocchio because it's one of the darkest ones. And even as a kid, and I think even as parents, was one of those ones that they actually recognized, okay, this one's dark, right? Because a lot of the ones that we mentioned, I watched The Brave Little Toaster a bunch. I watched All Dogs Go to Heaven a bunch, but I don't remember any kind of preface of, okay, this is a little dark. It was just, it's just another fun visual, like there's some music with Labyrinth, but like she just wished her baby brother away. But hey, man, we don't get entertainment like that anymore, especially in today's culture. They try to like protect, people's mental health so much. Yeah. And, we're the way that we are because we probably grew up on this stuff. So maybe regular day life doesn't affect us as much anymore. I don't know. Who knows?
I gotta give one last shout out to Hasbro for killing Optimus Prime in 1986, Transformers the movie. That one really was dark.
It was. That one was. I do remember that.
People crying when that happened.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely.
That was a bold move.
Yeah, it was. But thank you for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. Please like, comment, share, subscribe on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Not a Strong Start. I am your host, Nightmare Fuel. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I am not your host, Blanket Overshield, and you can find me at This Is Mi Nombre on IG.
And I am the Real 7Cs. You can follow me at the Real 7Cs, or also follow our podcast at the No 15 Allcast. Thanks for having me.
Exactly. Yep. Please check it out. It's very, very funny stuff, man. I listen to you and your co-host, man, when you guys break down movies, it's hilarious. You guys had a funny spin to it. So definitely give them a follow, give them a listen. Other than that, thanks for catching up with us, guys. Let us know in the comments, what are some of the movies that you watch that are dark that we maybe didn't say? Because there's still a whole long list of movies that we have that we didn't say.
Yeah, it's a lot.